Our E-team is back. Lisa Booth, James Freeman, and Capri Cafaro. All right, so the fight is on. Does she become the speaker?
Well, I think despite...
The answer is yes.
Yes, the answer is yes. I think despite a lot of the, criticism of Nancy Pelosi, and she's been, a lightning rod for many for over a decade, I think what's happened now, even though there's a lot of us out there that are not necessarily crazy about Nancy Pelosi, and I think that we need a new brand of leadership entirely, I think what's happening right now is that people see Nancy Pelosi as someone who understands the process, who can cut deals, who can whip votes, and I think, frankly, this is a bit of an identity politics play because she's a woman. She was the first Speaker of the House. I think they want to say, we're going to let you have this for 2 years and then bye-bye, Nancy Pelosi. We're going to let you retire with some grace and dignity. In the meantime, we have a country to govern.
James?
Yeah, I don't, it seems like the leave in 2 years thing is kind of moving aside. I think she's not maybe that interested in that. And I think even people who are not her fans realize you can't start out as a lame duck. But I think it is interesting, along with all of those qualities you mentioned, people fear her. Let's face it. There are not a lot of people who want to say, yes, I'll take her on. What they're hoping is maybe she kind of has a no confidence vote in her caucus, and then people feel comfortable saying, okay, maybe I'll give it a shot.
But she had a lot of people break with her the last leadership vote. I think it was nearly a third of the caucus said no to her. So that maybe that happens again. But Democrat Representative Alan Boyd said back in 2011 when he was on his way out because he lost in 2010 that she was the face that defeated us. And I was at the NRCC in 2010, and that was very much the case. You look at the amount of ads that showcase Nancy Pelosi as the face of the Democratic Party, and they suffered historic losses during the 2010 election as a result. Republicans picked up 63 seats. You also look at the fact that she mentioned health care, but that election cycle in 2010, a vote for health care cost Democrat incumbents 5.8 percentage points at the polls. So I think she probably will get reelected, but she's got a lot of issues. And
check out the brain on Lisa over here.
She's all the stats.
Yeah, I tell you what, this whole gavel thing for my cold dead hand, right? I mean, I misquoted last week. I said to Clint Eastwood, it was Charlton Heston.
I was just going to say, that's Charlton Heston.
He's been dying to say this.
I've been trying to make up for it. Clint Eastwood played Charlton Heston in the movie when he said for my cold dead hand. Did you see Meet the Press yesterday? By the way, put this on screen, guys.
I try to hide from news.
Democrats keep Pelosi, replace Pelosi. 56% say replace Pelosi. Easier said than done. Yesterday, Lauren Underwood, who won that congressional race in your home state of Illinois, and Alyssa Slotnick, newly elected Democrat from Michigan. I did not get a good sense from either one of them that they were willing to say they were going to vote against her. And I did not get a good sense from either one as to what the real message is for the next 2 years. How big of an issue could this be then for these incoming freshmen et al.?
Right. Well, a couple things here. I mean, one is the issue of message, and the other is one of functionality within the caucus. I mean, here you have freshman members that are hoping that they get some decent committee assignments and not end up on the subcommittee on fisheries, right? And in the basement of the Longworth House office building. They want to be able to be players. Part of that is making sure that you are on the winning team of leadership, because leadership in the caucus, Democrat and Republican, make those decisions in regards to committee assignments. So I think that these freshmen are a little bit leery. They're trying to find a balance between assuring that somehow they're on the winning team so they get decent committee assignments, but at the same time don't want to align themselves with someone who may be
I guess my question was, watching it, do they know? And if they can't give answers, can anyone else?
I agree with you. I mean, I think that this has been the challenge of us Democrats across the country, that we have not been able to articulate a clear message. And while we were able to win the House, I think that was because of demographic changes and not necessarily because we were able to reconnect with the middle of the country. Very few seats were picked up in those areas, frankly, where people rejected Nancy Pelosi.
Can I say, speaking of demographic changes, in transition to Michelle Obama's new book, we don't know exactly how much the book deal is, but it's big. And she and her husband, and she wrote this is a book excerpt. I will always wonder what led so many women, in particular, to reject an exceptionally qualified female candidate and instead choose a misogynist as their president. We will likely hear a lot more in the coming days. What she wrote about in this book, James, but that's one piece.
Yeah, I think this is kind of similar to her husband saying, this is really the Obama economy. I built that. The fact that Democrats, including Michelle Obama, are still talking about the Access Hollywood tape, these crude remarks from 10 years before Trump ran for president, I think tells you that the last 2 years have been a lot better than they expected. They may not say it that way, but things are pretty good. And so they're still focused on the pre-presidential Trump. How about talking about the performance in office? Pretty strong.
Well, I also think it's tough to make the argument that President Trump somehow only offends women. I mean, look, you can make the argument that President Trump can be offensive, but he's equally offensive to everyone and different groups of people. And you look at the individuals that he has surrounded himself in the White House. You have Nikki Haley, a woman who represents him on the world stage at the UN. You've got Sarah Sanders, who's the face of the administration as press secretary. Betsy DeVos at education. Elaine Chao at transportation. You've got Linda McMahon at small business. I mean, this is not a guy who he isn't afraid to surround himself with powerful women. So I think that argument really falls flat from Michelle Obama. And I actually think that Democrats hurt themselves when they continue to offend the individuals that supported this president.
This is going to get a lot of attention this week. You know, she goes on the tour, Chicago, here in Brooklyn, out to L.A. Just want to squeeze in one last point, Capri. Chris Wallace said yesterday that his staff at Fox News Sunday called every single newly elected Democratic member of the House, and all of them said no.
Well, look, I'll go on.
What's wrong with Wallace?
I mean, come on.
You're not a newly elected fresh. What's wrong with Wallace?
Well, nothing's wrong with it. What's wrong is Democrats are afraid to talk to the other side, and that's why we continue to lose. People are not willing to have a dialogue with folks that they think don't agree with them.
And that's why we're going to bring you back. Thank you, Capri.
Fantastic.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Lisa.